Okay, so just a real quick background for those of you who don't know me. My name is Cassandra McAllen. I've been in practice for 21 years, and I'm the inventor and practitioner of something I call thought pain therapy. And that's a healing technique for mental, emotional, and physical pain and dis-ease of the body mind. And it is based on my understanding of how everything is interconnected, and 5-element theory plays a large part in my work. And how I found it was 15 years ago, I received my first acupressure session. And after receiving it, I was absolutely in love and knew that this is how I was supposed to feel. So I decided to study it so I could bring it to my clients. I studied it for several years here, and I also studied in China. I learned that pain I would have, and we all have, in seemingly strange places, like that electrical charge that you feel in your legs in the middle of the night, or that strange sensation in your back. Well, that was connected with how I looked or what I craved, my favorite color. Everything was interconnected and my mind was blown. So I wanted to share it with even more people. So I continued to study, and I started teaching locally at colleges, martial arts symposiums, and some universities. And so now, for the first time ever, I'm going to be teaching virtually, so bringing it to the internet and to you. And for further questions about pain and disease, I'm going to link down below in the chat screen at my Calendly link, and you can contact me for a free 15-30-minute session where I can talk to you personally about whatever's going on with you. So 5-element theory actually first appeared in 770 BC. And it was mostly used in Chinese medicine, specifically philosophy, feng shui, martial arts, and fortune telling. And the reason for that is it has a divination quality that's familiar for those of you like Rebecca and Tevia, who are interested in astrology and other types of personality typing. But more importantly, it has a diagnostic quality, which helps prevent illness and disease. So, little background on elements and your connection to them. I know that most of you, if not all, took the elemental quiz, and I received a couple of questions like, how come I'm a different element when from this week to the next? So everyone is born into an element, and that element tends to relate to the biggest challenges that we face in our lives, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. However, based on other internal and external circumstances, we also connect to other elements. And generally, we should flow in and out of the elements on a daily, monthly, and seasonal basis as a sign of health. When we get stuck in a particular element and we begin to manifest symptoms of disease, that's when we know we have a problem. And that's what the charts I have created are for, to help you see that. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how you can help correct it before it becomes a physical problem. Okay, so let me screen share for you. But first, I'm going to put this link, like I said, in the chat. And now I will share my screen so we can go over the charts.
Yes, I don't see the link in the chat.
No? All right, let's see if I can find it. It should, oh, for some reason it went directly to one person. Apparently they're the only people who get to contact me. So let's fix that and let's try it again. Thank you. Better? All right. And yes, do unmute. You can use the space bar and you can ask questions that way if you like to. Okay, thank you for that. All right, does everyone see the chart? Yeah, thumbs up. You can see it there. Okay, so all of you should have gotten one of these and hopefully printed it out if you can't see this close enough, but I'm going to maximize it and hopefully it'll fill up your screen. Okay, so you can see at the bottom that I've got 4 different pages. overview, mind, body, and some balancing meditations. So we're going to start with the body because I think it's kind of easiest to begin thinking about some of the physical issues that you might be having. So what I'd like you to do to follow along if you're interested, because I think it's kind of fun, is if you have your chart in front of you, as I go through each of these, put a little dot or a little check mark if it's something that you've dealt with over the course of your life or something that is acute for you now and that you're dealing with. And that way it can kind of help you, if you already know what element you were born into, see what element that might be troubling you now. All right, any questions? Okay, so across the top, again, we're on page 3, is the element itself, along with the color that it represents and its Chinese name. So wood is Hun, fire is Shen, earth is Yi, metal is Po, and water is Shi. And we'll talk more about the colors and about the organs as we move forward. But briefly, the organs for wood are liver and gallbladder. So you'll notice symptoms can relate to that. The organs for fire are heart and small intestine. And then the 2 organs that are considered Chinese organs, pericardium and triple warmer. I'll talk about those more. Earth, spleen and stomach. Metal, lung and large intestine. And water, kidney and bladder. So many of the symptoms related to physical dis-ease are connected to those organs themselves, and you'll see as we move down. All right, so beginning with wood, we're going to go with the traditional indications for use or signs of imbalance. So wood is connected to addictions, specifically alcohol, work, and drugs. Also, allergies to airbornes, problems with ankles, arthritis, digestion problems, especially of fats, eye problems, 4th toe stiff, which sounds kind of cute, but literally when people are really heavy into their wood and are in imbalance, if you curl your toes, your 4th toe will not curl. Hepatitis, hernias, inflammation, tendinitis, problems in the jaw, liver problems, menstrual problems, migraines or headaches, muscle spasms or cramps, soft or cracking nails, nausea, neck problems, pain around the ears, forms of paralysis, sciatica pain, especially running down the sides of the legs, shoulder problems, sides of the body aching, sighing frequently. If you yourself or you know somebody who does a lot of when they talk, stiff muscles, and some urinary problems. Now, you will notice as we move along that there are some physical issues that are located under each element that are similar. So like headaches, because there's not just one way for some imbalances to manifest, right? So you could have a headache that is liver based, but you could also have a headache that is large intestine based. So while we're looking for a way to diagnose an elemental imbalance, it's really going to be cumulative, like how many of these affect you, right? Rather than just one thing. So any questions about wood before we move on? Or does anyone want to raise their hand virtually or in real life because they totally relate to wood? Yeah? Get a little wood on? Yeah. It's good stuff. And you may actually be born into wood, but you also may just have a period of your life where wood is the element that's most affecting you. And that can be because it's seasonal. So a lot of people are more affected by wood in the spring, and that is its season, and we'll get to that. Also, it can be because some external circumstance is driving that imbalance. And by that, I mean, when we get to the emotions, you will see that an emotion for wood is frustration, among others. So let's say you're in a situation where you are incredibly frustrated, angry, irritated all the time. Maybe it's someone in your life or a boss or a circumstance that you can't escape. being stuck in that emotion for long enough can push you into a wood imbalance, and that can start to have you manifest symptoms of disease. Yes, Seema. I think that's you. If you raise your hand, go ahead and unmute.
That was me, Rita.
Oh, Rita, sorry, I can't see you very well.
Oh,
Not enough light on your face. I apologize. Hi, honey.
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment. I remembered from your class before that wood was with the eye. However, I didn't remember jaw, and I have a jaw issue on the left side, left eye. So I just wanted to comment that was interesting. I forgot that went in that category as well.
Yes, and that is because the gallbladder meridian runs along the sides of the jaw and the eye and the back of the neck. And we won't go into the way the meridians run because you have lives probably, and you don't want to be here for another, 7 hours. But Rita actually studied in person when we did that. We taught in person. So lovely to see you again, sweetheart. Any other questions? Yes, Rebecca.
I have a question. Randall also has his hand up. I don't know if that's if he has a question or not, but my question is just, so this is all new to me, which is exciting. When you're talking about the what you're born into versus kind of what's happening right now, the quiz that we took, would that be more about what's happening right now, or
what you're born into?
What you're born into, yeah.
That's a really good question. And just thinking of you and Tevye specifically, I actually added the Chinese zodiac and the planets to provide a little bit more background for anyone who's interested in astrology. But the answer of your question can be twofold. It can be what you're dealing with right now, especially if that is kind of large and in charge of your life. So if whatever you're going through is really, for instance, if you've lost someone, you are undoubtedly experiencing grief, and that can push you into a metal imbalance. So when you took the quiz, sometimes we have a hard time differentiating between what is acute, in other words, what's happening to us now, or what is chronic, something that we've been dealing with our whole lives. So it could have been reflecting either. But as we move along, sometimes I would recommend that as we go through each physical symptom, you might put an A or a C by it. Like, this is a chronic thing, a C, like something I've dealt with, my whole life. Or put a little A, this is something I'm just really been frustrated with now. And it's surprising because it's never been a problem before. And that might help you figure out whether it is something that you're moving through at the present time, or whether it was something you were kind of born into. So I hope that answered that question.
Awesome,
and I don't see any other hands raised. Karma, is there anyone else?
Nope. Kat had a question about resharing the 5 elements quiz, but Emily sent her the link in the chat. So I think that's all good for right now.
I love my wing women's. Thank you, ladies. Okay, so if you've got wood, yay, lucky you. Good things that go along with it too, and we'll talk about those. But I wanted to start with just the physical because I think everyone can relate to why are my eyes bugging me, along with the fact I can't curl my 4th toe. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about fire. And this again is heart, small intestine, pericardium, and triple warmer. I'll talk a little bit more about pericardium and triple warmer. So traditional indications for use or signs of imbalance: arm pain or paralysis, arthritis, specifically in arm, hands, and shoulders, boils or complexion problems like acne, chest pain, nightmares in children, chilling or feeling chilled, cold, especially in the arms, being easily susceptible to colds, issues of confusion, constipation or diarrhea, cough with fever, deafness or tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, diabetes, dry cough or issues with bronchitis, epilepsy, extreme sweating or thirst, eye problems, specifically like blurred vision, headaches. Again, headaches are everywhere. Heart issues, skipping a beat, rapid heartbeat, high blood pressure, heart pain, hot palms, insomnia, jaw problems, issues with menopause, or more issues when you're going through menopause, menstrual problems, more issues with cramping or bleeding, muteness or other speech disorders, psychosomatic problems, meaning that you might be plagued with a lot of thoughts of illness. You know, oh God, what is this? Do I have that? Could it be this? Red face or puffy cheeks, issues with regulation of your temperature. You can't seem to stay warm, or you can't seem to cool off. Shoulder tension, skin problems like itching, or sometimes types of eczema, sore throat or tonsillitis, also losing your voice, issues with speech and communication, stiff elbows or arms, issues with swollen underarms, thyroid issues, and toothaches. So some of the things that are kind of specifically related is thyroid would be related to the triple warmer meridian or the triple warmer organ, because the triple warmer acts like the thermal regulator of our body. Heart issues would be related to the heart organ, also the pericardium, which is that sac around our heart. Things like insomnia in a fire element would be related with just that constant thinking, that constant rumination, or you just can't calm your mind. It's very fire. Also, it doesn't say on here anxiety, but anxiety that leads to physical problems is also very fire. And then some of the things like the things related to the arm and hands and shoulders is because that's where some of the meridians are running. So the pathways of meridians are also going to show difficulty and dis-ease of the body. And we'll go over those a little bit more in depth in overview, but just to give you an idea, like why arthritis in the arms, hands, and shoulders versus, you know, legs and feet. So any questions about fire? Yes, Karma.
So I had a question. I was reading through this with you, and I'm wondering if other people may have this question as well, is if you identify with some of these symptoms, but say like 3 from one category, 2 from another, and you kind of see things about yourself in each one, what do you recommend is a good way to really narrow down like what sign is really you? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. What element you mean are you really being affected by? It's
Yes.
cumulative. And that's why as we go through each of these charts, I really highly recommend you highlight those things that are connected to you. And again, write an A for acute, it's bugging me right now, or a C for chronic. Yeah, this has always been a problem. Like I've always struggled with acne. And by the time we get through all 3 pages, the body, the mind, and the overview, I think that you will definitely have an idea as to what element you are based on just the cumulative amount of symptomology that is relating to you specifically. But if you still don't know, you can click the link and we can talk about it, and I can help you understand where the pain's coming from. So
Thank you.
excellent question.
Okay.
Any other questions about fire?
One.
Yes,
How does that relate to stuttering?
I cannot hear you, and I'm so sorry you're not popping up on my screens. Carmen, can you highlight them? Yeah, hi.
How does that relate to stuttering, Cass?
How does it relate to stuttering? It would be under fire. Yes.
Okay.
So stuttering issues with speech, absolutely. Fire.
Okay.
Good question, because it doesn't say that here, and it would help if it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
One suggestion for those people who are questioning is go back and take the test. For one thought for people who are questioning which element they're in would be to go back and take the test.
Yes, and there's some people on this group that have probably not taken that. I don't know if we can put the link in the chat, but if not, go to the page on my Facebook page, Free the Wisdom to Heal the Body.
Okay.
And the test is on there, a little quiz that I made up. And it only has like 5 or 6 questions, but it can give you kind of a quick answer. But that was a great
The link is in the chat.
link is in the chat. Excellent. But that was a great question. Yeah, stuttering should probably be on here in addition. Okay. Any other questions about fire physically?
Yeah. I've been taking the test, but it seems like each time I take it, I'm a different element. So
Yes.
I'm really confused.
So, and that's why I was mentioning, Joan, and thank you for bringing that up, that we should be vacillating between elements. So in any given day, you can have your energy run through all of these elements, and that's actually very healthy. And when we get to the emotional components, you will see how we can be triggered externally to kind of move through all of it. So to be in one of the elements in some part of every day is actually a sign of health. So not a sign of concern. When we're stuck in an element, then it begins to manifest physical issues. And so you can think of physical issues that you have dealt with in the past or currently. And based on where we're going, you can kind of look in each of these elemental cycles and probably get an idea of what a primary elemental motivator is for you. And it might also be your birth element. So that'll tell you kind of what you are most susceptible to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing that, saying that it's healthy to move through all of these, because reading the list of all these things, none of them seem good.
Okay, so we're starting with, because I didn't want to overwhelm you with the overview, we're starting with physical issues. So none of these would manifest unless you were stuck in an imbalance.
Okay.
But they all have positive qualities too. But we're just starting with the physical symptomology because generally it is easier to recognize a physical symptom than it is an emotional or mental situation, or whether or not you feel things in certain areas of your body or your favorite flavors or taste cravings. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But yeah, no, we don't want all of these things. But if you've struggled with some of them throughout your life and they seem to fall under a particular category, that helps you understand that this is what your predominant element is and where you're most likely to struggle.
Okay.
Good?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the one that you're most likely going to want to focus on balancing.
Yes, exactly. All right. So moving on to earth, which is the spleen and the stomach, abdominal cramping, issues with anorexia or bulimia, arthritis, specifically in the leg or knee, issues with your big toe, breast problems, cancer, chronic fatigue, constipation, cough, emphysema, deafness, depression, diabetes, diarrhea, edema, which is swelling, epilepsy, eye problems, fatigue. And we talk about fatigue, really more of that kind of severe fatigue, like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, flatulence or gas, food addictions or allergies, genital disorders, headaches, hemorrhaging, hemorrhoids, hernia, hypoglycemia, indigestion, insomnia, jaw and mouth issues, leg pain or paralysis, menstrual cramps, MS, muscle spasms, tonsillitis, and issues with vomiting or inability to hold down food. Any questions on any of these? Yes. What's your thoughts, Kristen?
Sorry, I had to find my unmute.
Yes.
So question on something that is on the list.
Yeah.
I'll be specific. I don't care about, this particular thing. So I have lymphedema, form of edema.
Okay.
It is the direct result of some surgery that I had to have.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not had the surgery, I would not be in the place of lymphedema. it wasn't a foregone conclusion that I would develop the lymphedema. It's just a likelihood after this kind of surgery. So in a case like that, where now the condition is the result of a surgical intervention, do you look at the edema in this case as potentially an earth imbalance, or do you not, because it was a surgery that kicked it off, as opposed to one day I woke up and I had edema?
Right. No, it would definitely be a one-off in the sense that I would need to see other connections to earth for you, for me to say, because you have edema, because of this surgery, that makes you have an earth imbalance. So there would need to be more than just one. And for instance, if you've suffered, an accident that harmed your arm, and because of that, you have paralysis or chronic pain, I wouldn't suggest that you're fire. So good question. Yes, if it's the result of something external outside of yourself that wasn't kind of co-created within, then I would want to see more signs from different sections in that particular element for me to diagnose that element as that. Yay. Any other questions? All right. So moving on to metal. So the organs for metal are lung and large intestine. And some of the issues in metal: anxiety, again, arm pain and paralysis, arthritis, asthma, boils, breathing problems, bronchitis, carpal tunnel, chest pain, congestion, constipation, coughing, depression, diarrhea, swelling in the face, eczema, headache, hypersalivation, IBS or IBD or Crohn's disease, insomnia, large intestine problems, lung cancer or lung problems, dry mouth, excessive mucus, nosebleeds, paralysis in arms or face, pharynx or throat, which is responsible for digestion and breathing, rashes, a weak sense of smell, skin problems, shoulder pain, sore throat, throat spasming, tonsillitis, and common toothaches. So that is metal. Any questions on metal? Okay. All right, so we're going to finish up with,
Question,
yeah.
if I may, where is teeth grinding?
Teeth grinding is not here, but I think we will see on the overview. I think you'll see a connection there. It's one of those things that grinding your teeth, we can't relate it specifically to teeth. It would often be related to how your system has found a way to manage your anxiety or frustration. And you're not doing it consciously, you're doing it while you sleep. So you're like, I'm so pissed off, or I'm so anxious, or I'm so this or that I can't even manage it in my waking time. But when I'm sleeping, I'm going to grind the heck out of it. So just a thought. All right, so we'll finish with water. It's the final element. Issues with water are connected to the kidney and your bladder. And we begin with adrenal burnout, back trouble, cold in limbs, chest problems, cystitis, chronic fatigue, diabetes, diarrhea, ear problems, ringing, edema, epilepsy, eye problems, fibromyalgia, genital disorders, early hair loss, headaches, hemorrhoids, hip pain, sciatic pain, also pain in the glutes and low back, hysterectomy, meaning forced to have an early one or have one, impotence, insomnia, kidney stones, also bladder infections, if I didn't say that, little toe stiff, same thing. If you curl your toes, your little toe will not curl. Menstrual disorders, neck pain, night sweats, nosebleeds, osteoporosis, pain and spasms in your calves, also the backs of your legs and your glutes, paralysis, sensitivity to cold, early sterility or sterility without known cause, tiredness, especially if it's between 5 and 7 p.m. when one of the meridians is running, and urinary problems, urinary infections. Any questions about water? So I know going over all these physical issues is kind of overwhelming, but I like to start here because it gives you kind of a real world way to look at it and go, wow, okay, I have dealt with these things, you know, maybe more in one column than another, but throughout my life, or especially now, and I don't know why. Yes, Emily.
Can you explain a little bit more what adrenal burnout means?
Yes. So as you know, our adrenal system works in order to create a reaction to stress. And on a short-term basis, it actually can be very healthy because it can heighten senses and enable us to complete tasks. But when we do it on a long-term basis, our adrenals burn out. And that is connected to water. And the reason it's connected to water is because one of the emotions that water affects and co-creates as an element is an emotion of fear. And so being in a constant state or repetitive state of fearful, stressful thoughts can cause adrenal burnout. And that's why it's a physical symptom for that. And we will actually go right in and we're going to start about the mental and emotional components. And you will see that one of those is related to water. And so that's why.
Great.
Thank
Question. You.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So
just a comment about constipation and diarrhea. Rita.
Yes.
So in that case, you would go with what the majority, like which element has the majority to, because it showed up in like 3 or 4 of the elements.
Yes, it's one of those things like headaches, right? So headaches, they could be caused by the fact you're dehydrated. They could be caused by the fact that somebody is just really got you in the brain, right? You just can't deal with it anymore. And like that, like IBS or you know, chronic diarrhea or constipation, it can be elemental related to the large intestine, or it could be emotional. You're holding on to your shit. So that's why some of these are in a lot of different columns. But yeah, you can feel free to, for instance, if you struggle with diarrhea or constipation, highlight it in every column it shows. And as we move to the next section where we talk about the psyche and the mental and emotional components, you might see a few more that make you realize, okay, I think this is me. A good question.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How would something like dizziness or vertigo show up?
That is a good question. And I don't have it here right now, but I would say off the top of my head, and Seema, if it's something you struggle with on the regular, I actually talk about it in my Facebook group. I have a live where I talk about vertigo, and I would say it's probably an earth imbalance, but it also could have a water component as well. So I would probably put it in both.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. And I don't know why it's not here. Let's put it here. Let's change the world right now. Because I'm going to do some more research and make sure, but that's where I would put it. So excellent question. All right, we're going to go on to mind, which would be the second page in the charts that I sent you. And we're going to talk about some more interesting components of our elements. So across the top again, wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So the first thing we're going to go through is the color, which is related to a complexion and a preference. And I've always found this fascinating. So the original color here, green, red, yellow, white, and blue, relates to an underlining color of the skin. So for instance, it's pretty obvious to notice if you're red-faced or someone you know is red-faced, right? But if you've ever noticed or seen in yourself or someone else, kind of that bluish or dark area under the eyes, or where their face has kind of a cast, or sometimes you might even see somebody who literally looks a little greenish. You might notice that somebody looks a little yellowish to their cast, or in the case of metal, a little gray toned. I've said before to people, when I see someone with a grayish cast to their skin, it's usually a sign that they're in metal imbalance. So the first is the complexion color, and this is not related in any way to ethnicity or anything other than the underlying color to a person's skin. So regardless of ethnicity, you could have any of these shades to your skin. The other is a little funner, and it's a color preference. So when we talk about color preferences, we're also including brown in addition to green for wood, and pink and purple in addition to red for fire, orange and yellow for earth, white, also gray and silver for metal, and blue and black for water. So how do you know what your color preference is? Well, if you close your eyes, what are the most of the colors of clothes you own? That's probably your color preference. Now, the sole exception is if you have a faith that requires you to wear mostly white, that doesn't necessarily make you metal. If you have difficulty grounding or feeling protected or sacred or sheltered, then you might have predominantly black clothes. So for other than those white or black, for those reasons, if you think about blues or grays or silvers, yellow, orange, red, pink, purple, green, and brown. And I always like to say, I know what element I'm working. If I will go to my just worn once clothes, you know, that chair you have that's covered with your clothes, and pull something out of my dirty laundry to wear rather than wear something in my closet. Because I just feel like I need to have this shirt, this color on me today. So tons of clean clothes in my closet, but I'm going to shake out this blue shirt to wear. So that also, if you hate one of these colors. So some elemental imbalances can be seen in their excess or deficiency. So we'll talk about this in other ways, but it will either be, I love this so much, or I can't stand this. And my mother loves to say how when I was younger, I could not stand the color yellow or orange. And now I surround myself in it because I was born into earth. When I was younger, hated it. Oh my gosh, yellow or orange, wouldn't wear it, wouldn't have it on me, couldn't stand the color. But now, love it. Any questions about color preference or complexion? No? Okay. All right. So every element has a climate that affects it. I won't say harshly, but can negatively affect someone, especially if they're already struggling in their element. So for wood, the climate is wind. And that is most common in the spring, when is the season for wood that we'll talk about. So if you are somebody who gets incredibly frustrated when it's super windy outside, that's a sign of a wood imbalance. And continuing on with wood, the sound, every person has a sound, a voice, or a speech pattern. So wood, as we talked about before, okay, yeah, a lot of sign of wood. Also shouting. Somebody who seems to, really project when they're talking to you. Maybe sounds a little forceful. The emotions connected to wood are excitability and anger and frustration. So anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, all of those are aspects of a wood character or wood imbalance. So you can see what I mean by, let's say you're like me, you're born into earth, but somebody's really pissing you off and you can't get away and you can't change it, you can't fix it, you can't fade it. That could put you into a wood imbalance. And if that stays in your system for long enough and you don't find ways to heal, release, and free yourself from that pain, you could begin to manifest symptoms of disease and dis-ease, not being in ease. Okay, life aspect or challenge or strength. So some of the strength of wood, yes, Karma.
So I just wanted to touch on something that you said when you were talking about, say, for example, like the climate, the symptoms that you're affected by. You said that if you're someone who gets really frustrated when it's really windy outside, that means that you have an imbalance in that element. Does that mean that you like that is your element? Like we were discussing earlier about how like if you like resonate with these symptoms, this may mean that you are much more of like a fire element or an earth element. So would that be that you have an imbalance or that you are more earth or fire?
It's a good question. So first, let me preface this by saying that five elemental theory is one of the most complex parts of traditional Chinese medicine. So people can study it for decades to understand the interconnections. So it is not an easy initial thing to kind of understand because there is this complexity. So you could be an earth person and have a lot of stress and struggles going on in your life and notice that it's just really bothering you right now that it's so freaking windy every time you go out. That would be a sign that even though you are born into earth, you are struggling in wood. And one of the things I would recommend is if you are struggling in wood, I would recommend to wrap your orifices when you go out for a walk. So if I know that I'm already struggling with irritation, let's see if this makes more sense. If I know that I'm already frustrated about something in my life and I'm going to go for a walk, I'll take a scarf. I will wrap it around my head, my ears, my mouth, and my nose, and I'll wear sunglasses because I don't want to allow more wind into my system because I'm already feeling that kind of aggravation and irritation. And each of these, when they enter the body, wind, heat, humidity, dryness, and cold, they cause issues and imbalances. So when a body is especially windy, wind in the system acts like a leaf in the wind. So it starts to manifest issues all over the body when someone's out of balance in wood and it's wind related. So you start having like, why does my back hurt? And why do I have a headache only on the left side? And why is my wrist hurting? And why is my jaw bugging me? They seem to be all over the place. Again, like a leaf in the wind. Heat, internal fire causes things like high blood pressure, high anxiety, excessive mind speed. Humidity and dampness in the system under earth causes things like edema and swelling. Dryness immediately shows up as skin issues. If you notice your skin's super dry and you don't know why, or it becomes super itchy and you're just itching all the time because you're so dry. Cold when it enters the body. Has anyone ever gotten so cold you had to take a shower or soak in a bathtub to warm up, right? That's when cold has entered the system. So that's kind of a dramatic example. So each of these climates can affect the body in a negative way. And you, if your element is wood, will be generally more affected by wind. Also, these climates can be on either end of that spectrum, right? You can love them. You can say, I'm a fire person. I freaking love heat. I'm an earth person. I love being damp. But usually it's the opposite. Like if you read these across the top and you think, I hate being damp. I hate, but like I say, I hate being moist. And it's a sign because I'm also earth. This is my element. I'm earth and I don't like to sweat. I certainly don't like to perspire. I don't even like to be moist. Okay. So does that answer the question, Karma?
Yes. So like a good way to like wrap it up and rephrase it would be the climate that we have listed here, like that specific climate affects your element, whichever one you identify with more. So
yeah, I love
Okay.
that. Thank you, wing
Thank you.
person.
Yes.
Okay, so life, back to wood specific, life aspect, challenge, and strength. So this is a little bit on the amorphous, so you're going to just bear with me and wrap your mind around it. But wood people really have a connection to what we refer to as their soul, and they are generally powerful in ambition. So attributes, emotional affects, mental challenges and or struggles, also conversely, successes and skill sets. So let's talk about wood. The ability to say no. So think again, all or nothing. Either somebody who's like, no's a complete sentence. I don't need to explain myself to you. Or somebody who just cannot set a boundary for the life of them. They try, but people just keep crossing them. Irritability. This can be somebody that struggles kind of with a low-grade irritability all the time. Why is everyone so annoying? Or it could also be somebody who never seems to get angry at nothing. Like, does that piss you off? No, nothing. Again, all or nothing, right? If you are good with your anger, if you get frustrated, sure, but it's not a big thing for you, you're probably not wood. Boundary issues. I like to say that a boundary without a consequence is a wish list. So if you struggle with boundary issues, try making consequences. Control issues. This could either be super hyper controlling, like you just have to control everything because you know how to do it best, or feeling like your life is out of control, like you never have control of anything. Planning and motivating. So people with a wood imbalance either generally, if their system is out of balance, have difficulty making plans. Like, that person who says, I don't care, whatever you want. And you're like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, I don't know. Well, what do you want to eat? Well, whatever you like. Whenever I hear somebody say that a lot, I think to myself, that might be working wood. Also motivating. Like, are you the person who makes a ton of lists? You got Post-its everywhere because you never actually get the shit done. Right? That's wood. You're great at planning, but maybe not great at motivating. Or you feel good about motivation, but you can't figure out what it is you should do. Okay? So if you struggle or you're supreme or superb at that, then that's also connected to wood. All right, indecision, we talked about, especially with career, wood relating to work and as a form of addiction. Somebody who works a lot, is constantly at work, can't get away from their work, tends to be, if it's an addictive quality for them, tends to be a sign of a wood imbalance. Judgmental. So that's judgmental of self and others, right? And again, we all struggle with judgment. So if you've struggled with judgment, that doesn't mean that your element is wood, but it could mean that you're working wood right now. Like somebody's really bugging you and you got a lot of judgment about it because you wish they'd stop. Could be that you're in wood. Implosive anger, blaming self, guilt, shame, depression. It's someplace that you go fairly commonly. Again, if this is every once in a while, it's probably not you. Also explosive anger, blaming others, holding resentments, having hatred for people, having people that are your enemies, or, I'll just put a line through their name. That's it. They're dead to me. Wood people are generally really good with initiative. So they have that ambition to get stuff done. Again, their season is spring. So it's all about that seed kind of breaking through the earth and what it takes to become. Wood people are really good with entrepreneurship. They're very courageous. They have a lot of flexibility in thought and action. They're very creative. They're open to growth. They like to grow. Spiritual resources available, assertiveness, who you are, again, those soul qualities. So really doing deep work on knowing who you are. Also, an acuity with their spiritual faculties. And then just for fun, I added this on. So this is not on your chart. So you might want to write it in at the bottom. These are the virtues of the element, in case it all sounded bad, like Randall said. This sounds like a lot of stuff I don't want. These are the virtues of wood is benevolence. All right, anybody triggered by being wood?
Well, I don't know about triggered, but I certainly see a lot of the wood characteristics in myself.
And it may be either this is your base element, you're kind of born here, so it's always been a thing, Or it may be what you're dealing with right now, or what you've been dealing with the past few months, or even the past few years. But the longer the imbalance goes on, the more likely you're going to show symptoms of dis-ease. And Carmen, when people talk, can you spotlight them for me so I can see them? Otherwise I can't. Emily.
So I'm wondering, I also am experiencing a lot of both physical and emotional issues around wood. And I'm wondering, with the pandemic or, something that's going on in the world, is it sometimes more common that we might all be experiencing a type of imbalance if we're depending on kind of what the world is showing us, or, other major national or international factors that are going on?
100%. Like when we talk about water, we're going to talk about fear. And boy, when COVID happened, everybody was kind of almost thrust into water, right? Because there was so much fear going on that you could sense it in everyone, and it was affecting people. Also seasonally, and we'll talk about the seasons for each element. Every season, almost everyone I see is working in imbalance connected to that season, whether or not it's their base element or not. So, in spring, I'm going to get a little woody, even though that's not my base element. Does that answer it?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Kristen, if you raise your hand, by the way, you pop to the top of my screen and I can see you.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, so I am such a poster child for wood. You should really just put my little face right next to your description.
It's adorable.
Right. Yeah. There's me. I'm wood. So my question is, I have lived my life in this place, and I have certainly moved into and out of, strengths and imbalances in the other elements. How would one know if one is already so strongly wooden that one is now having a woody imbalance?
You'd begin to start manifesting those physical symptoms we began with. You'd start to see more and more things related to that.
Skewing towards the, I don't want to judge it, but perhaps less desirable emotional qualities, the anger, the whatever, plus the physical manifestations that are painful and, let's face it, unwelcome.
Yeah. I mean, like I like to say that anytime I meet somebody who says something along the lines of, why is everyone such an asshole? I'm like, oh, somebody's working wood. Hi. I know, because I feel it too, right? So yeah, if you start really noticing some of those qualities that make it harder for you to be happy, right? That kind of steal a little bit of your joy because you feel like, I don't want to have to deal with these things right now. Or you start seeing more of those physical issues, like your body starts manifesting more pains and aches in the wood related areas. That's how you know that you're a little stuck. We need a little movement. I'm poster child for earth and fire, by the way. So yeah, I feel you. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So moving on to fire or Shen. So the colors red, pink, and purple. If you in your closet notice that you have a majority of red, pink, and purple, again, eschewing white for spiritual reasons or black for grounding reasons, then this could be connected to fire for you. If you've ever said to yourself, probably if you're a woman, maybe if you're a dude, I don't judge, I have to wear these red underwear today because it's going to make me feel powerful and fiery. Yeah, that connects to that. The climate is heat. So if you are someone who either craves heat, like you are that sun bunny that will lay out for hours and nothing makes you feel better than to be like a lizard on a rock, or if you're the person like myself that runs from shadow to shadow like a vampire, that can relate to fire. The sounds of voice or speech patterns for fire tend to be a kind of a giddy, sort of lighthearted when they talk. Maybe you hear some giggles in their voice and yeah, oh my God, I'm so excited. And they laugh a lot. And when they're talking, they just kind of break into laughter. And sometimes you'll even see it when they're sad. They're like, yeah, I mean, I had the worst childhood. Let me just tell you, it was bad. That tends to be a sign of a fire element. and I sometimes say imbalance with element, but think of it more as element, right? Because you're not really out of balance unless you're manifesting symptomology that takes your joy. So the emotion for fire is happiness, joy, also pretense. So that person who just wants everybody to think they're fine. I'm good. How are you? Or, you know, that kind of people-pleasing element of being really concerned with the social. So they're always putting on that face. Okay, life aspect, challenge and strength. So like the wood is the soul, the fire is the spirit. And that vitality for life. Okay, some qualities of fire. High energy, knows how to separate pure from impure. And what they mean is you have a good idea of what is right and wrong for you. You don't struggle with, I don't know, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Or whether or not a quality, a characteristic, or an experience is something that will increase or decrease your health. So you're somebody who knows yourself pretty darn well and is able to separate those things that will benefit you from those things that won't. Now, mind you, you may still do the things that don't benefit you, but you know them. Knowing what you love. Again, kind of going back to what I said. Issues of spiritual deprivation, feeling disconnected from spirit or your faith or collective consciousness. Issues with mental control, either having such a hyperactive mind or feeling like you're not in control of your thoughts. They just run away without you. Inappropriate laughter. Somebody who laughs at a funeral, if there's not some other reason, probably working some fire. Mania and depression. I would say if bipolar had an element, it would be fire. So if you struggle with sometimes you're super high and you're going and everything's great and it's amazing. And then before you know it, you're just like, I can't keep up with this. I can't do this anymore. I don't know what's going on with me. And you might vacillate up and down. Hysteria and anxiety. I remember having a fire episode where I found myself, and I didn't realize it till after the fact, but I'm going to give you an example of what fire looks like when gone wrong. Found myself curled up on the floor, hugging my knees, rocking and crying and repeating to myself, I can't get it done. I can't get it done. I can't get it done. Just overwhelmed and really just gone to a place of such severe anxiety because I didn't think I could manage that energy. That's a sign of fire gone awry. Sign of fire gone good is somebody who's excellent with communication. They're a wonderful speaker. You love to hear them talk. And more so, they're good with expressing their feelings. So they're good explaining themselves. So if you're really good at telling someone how you feel or explaining other things, it's generally related to fire. It's a quality. It's a positive attribute. Relationship issues. So fire is generally related to relationships and connection with relationships. So, and communication in relationships. If you find that this is really something you're good at, probably a fire quality. If it's something that you continually struggle at, it could also be related to fire. Personal growth, kind of like wood is open to growth, fire is really kind of dedicated to personal growth, growth of self, growth of spirit. Inner joy, somebody with fire has an easier time feeling joyous, feeling joyful. Nervousness and stressed. Yeah, like kind of I gave you that overarching example of just like me just flipped out. Minor reactions in a fire realm would be being nervous, being stressed, like kind of that low grade anxiety. Also, like we talked about, because of that mania, it could also be melancholy, just kind of a low grade, missing that joy. Discord in relationships, kind of mentioned that. nervous excitement. And this would be not if you're nervously excited about Christmas morning, but if you're nervously excited kind of regularly, like when something's coming up, it makes you nervous. Lively and infectious. So you are somebody that people say they love to see or hear talk, or they love to share because you enlighten them, right? You kind of raise that vibration. Also hyperactive and hectic. I have a joke about what somebody calls me, and that's my favorite thing to do is shove it in real hard. Like, I got shit to do. So when I'm out of balance, I get very hyperactive and I feel very hectic. Somebody who is working fire tends to make friends easily. That is more common with people, obviously, who are extroverts or ambiverts, and it would be somebody who's an introvert. They're good with sexual intimacy, generally. People will say they radiate warmth. They kind of radiate fire. And spiritual resources that are available. The peace and harmony, finding that inner joy. And like wood is who you are, fire is how you carry it out. So how do you show who you are to the world? Does your career, does what you do for a living or what you do for your pastime or your passion carry out who you feel you are? And joie de vivre, that lightness of spirit and life. One second. And the virtue is propriety. Yes, Sue. You want to unmute yourself?
Oh, yeah. So going down this page, I look like fire all over the place. But we know that I'm earth.
Well, you're born into earth.
And I have some earth stuff. But right now, I highlighted on page 2, I highlighted all kinds of fire elements. So what's going on?
So, well, there's, again, you don't get a prize if you only resonate with one element. So we are going to show aspects of all elements at different times in our lives, some more so than others. And to know if you are out of balance, in other words, you are manifesting things you don't like, mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. That is when what of the most in a column you have would be important to take note of. Like, I know I'm earth, but I'm all over fire. So when I think about some of the fire symptoms physically, if you're manifesting them, then you're excessive in fire. And yes, we need to balance your fire energy and bring it back down because your body is naturally earth. And so when you're excessively fire, it might seem uncomfortable.
So I don't have a lot of the fire physical symptoms. I just have a lot of the fire page 2.
A lot of the emotional characteristics.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to earth and see if you have as many earth as you think you might compared to fire.
Right before you do that, we do have another question from Randall.
Yes, can you highlight him because he didn't pop up?
I cannot spotlight people unless they have their camera on.
Was my camera off?
I can't see you at Randall, so.
Oh. Interesting. I'm clicking this.
There you are.
Okay.
Now you're right there.
I haven't
Your
seen.
hand.
I haven't seen. So, okay. I was going to ask about you mentioned earlier personal growth in fire versus open to growth in wood.
So what's the difference?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a, it's not a massive difference, but how I would describe the difference is somebody in wood is kind of open to all the things. Somebody in fire is really focused on developing their personal things. Like, I want to be the best person I could be. Whereas a wood person might be like, hi, I'm into everything. Like, teach me more. I want to know about this. I want to know about that. I want to know about these things.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thanks for turning your camera on.
I didn't know I had it off.
And then before we move on, we were looking at the chat and it looks like there could be a request for maybe like a 5-minute break so that we can kind of like
Yes.
process all the information that we've just received.
No, absolutely. It's time for a bio break anyways, and forgive me for not noticing the time. I just got so fiery about it. Of course, when I teach, I got to bring up the fire, right? Because then that helps give me the energy to project and to teach. So yes, let's take a 10-minute bio break. So I will see you back here. We'll give you another couple minutes after that. How about if I see everybody back here at 1:20? Does that work? It's 1:17 or 1:17? Okay. And if you don't have to go to a bio break and you want to stay here and just ask me questions, we can do that too. I will stop screen share and won't be talking anymore about the elements. So those of you that need a bio break won't miss it.
You may want to stop recording for this part too, and then make sure you come back, but although you
Excellent.
don't have to do that.
So
And I'm going to screen share. Nope. Not where I'm going. Let's try again. Yay. Okay. So we are now moving on to Earth. So the color, again, for the complexion and preference for Earth is yellow, a complementary color also orange. The symptoms or climate is humidity and dampness. The sound of voice or speech pattern is funny with Earth. You can tell someone who's got Earth as their regular element or an imbalance because sometimes they sing stuff they say to you. Do this all the time. So if you yourself or you know somebody who just kind of has a sing-song quality to their voice when they're talking, they're probably an Earth. The opposite of that, of course, is that monotone Bueller. I can't even really do monotone well, but you get me, right? Or that kind of quavering sound to somebody's voice where they sound like they're not really sure if what they're saying is a good thing to say. That is also Earth. The emotion, pensiveness, also, and most commonly, sympathy and worry. So these are really big with Earth. If you are somebody who either is known for or struggles with compassion, to codependency, people pleasing, you're Earth. The life aspect is ideas and opinions. Earth people really good at having and giving opinions. So qualities of Earth: emotional affects, mental challenges and or struggles, also successes and skill sets. Helpfulness, empathy, also sympathy. Compassion, nurturing, also issues with boundaries because of that codependent quality. The other end of that spectrum, lack of consideration. So if you're somebody who normally is a very compassionate, considerate person, and you're in a space where you're like, fuck it, I don't care. That's also can be a sign of imbalance. Issues with mother. Issues with reflection, self-reflection, reflecting with others. Obsessions, excessive sympathy, excessive worry. Rumination, I've talked about quite a few times. Also, people who are very pragmatic. Laziness, lack of concentration, being very balanced. Digestive problems and food allergies. Somebody who's very grounded and earthy, like if you've ever been called an earth mother or just been told about how grounded you seem. Someone who's super comfortable in their caring and giving space. This is the person who just wants to take care of everybody all the time. Also, other end of the stick, lack of empathy. Somebody who's very reliable. So your Earth person, I always think of my grandmother. She struggled with food addictions, so she ran towards obesity, but it was just more to love. And everybody who met her loved her because she was just so caring, considerate, and compassionate to everyone. She dedicated her life to caretaking other people. Like, that's Earth. Spiritual resources that are available to you. Meditation. Learning how to ground if you haven't already. And your connection to your higher self. In different forms of faith, that's considered the space between you and God, creator, the universe, whatever you conceive that to be. The virtue of an Earth person, they generally really, really value their honesty and expect that from others as well. Any questions about Earth? Any Earth people? Get your Earth on. Yeah. Yes, Kat.
Oh, good. You saw that. I do have a question. There are people in my life that have qualities of particular elements, and some of the qualities in these other elements that aren't my base element can irritate me or rub me the wrong way. So that's almost what I'm seeing a lot now that I've done my base element with you. I'm thinking of other people.
Yeah.
A lot of these qualities in other people are ones that I find myself kind of steering away from people with a lot of these qualities.
So they're not comfortable.
Things here.
The what?
Is there like a compatibility element here, like there is maybe in astrology?
You mean, is there like a natural element that tends to connect with another element?
Right, exactly.
There really isn't. It tends to be how you are living your life. So for a younger person like Karma, she will generally manifest more from her base birth element. But as we age, we have a tendency to have kind of created our life. So let's say you were born into one element and you manifested a lot of that as when you were younger, but now based on how you're living your life and how you've healed certain issues and what your external stimuli is, like the people around you, like you said, that could affect the element that you most show up in now. And having people who show a lot of qualities that are contrary to your comfort level can oftentimes bring up feelings of frustration, irritation, or just separation. Like, you're not my person. Like, if you're a real person who's really grounded in your connection with compassion and empathy, and you are just somebody who is always kind of over identifying or in that love space, somebody who's very frustrated and angry at people all the time might seem very incompatible. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? All right, metal it is. So the complexion or preference, white, gray, silver. So again, I mentioned a grayish pallor or a whitish pallor to someone's skin can often denote a sign of illness. And it would be an illness that would likely be in the metal element. Sound of voice or speech pattern is a weeping or poor me. So that is often characterized by somebody who, for some reason or another, whenever they're talking, just kind of sounds like they might be sad. And even if they're not crying, they still sound kind of weepy. Life aspect, challenge or strength. Metal, really good with a connection to instinct. So if you're struggling in metal, really connecting with your instinctual needs, beliefs, and trusting your instincts. Yes, Karma.
Tevia mentioned in the chat that you grazed over the climate for metal, and maybe to touch on that quickly.
Oh, I did. Thank you. Thank you, Tevia, and thank you, Karma. Yeah, so the climate for metal is dry. So again, we see that most common reflected in our skin when your skin starts getting super dry. Now, obviously, that happens in winter as well, and sometimes in late fall. But when you start being parched all the time, right? You just can't seem to get enough fluid in. You start feeling that your joints ache more because they're not having their usual lubrication, and things just seem kind of retracted. That can be a sign of internal dryness. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, issues, emotional effects, mental challenges and struggles, conversely, successes and skill sets. Issues with abandonment, envy or jealousy, midlife crisis issues, issues with emotional walls. So either you are somebody who has a hard time making any boundaries for yourself in that way, or you're somebody that nobody can get through. Like you're just somebody whose walls are right up here. Problems with receiving. Issues with trusting your instincts or feeling you can connect with your instinctual self. Just like earth was mother issues, metal tends to be father issues. Emotional walls, very good with stoic behavior, right? Somebody who just shows you nothing. No matter what you say, you just get nothing. That's generally somebody whose element is metal. Feeling of being deprived of something. Life changes regarding sadness and loss. So what I've noticed is people that are working metal oftentimes will talk about a time in their life before something happened as the best time in their life. I think of the song Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. So when you're talking to them, they will say things like, you know, when I was in high school, I was the most amazing quarterback and all the girls loved me and it was the best time of my life. Or they might say something like, you know, since my wife passed, however many years ago, life has just never been the same. Things aren't ever as good. Or, you know, back in the day when I had my whatever car, whatever house, whatever job, things were great. But now they comparatively are not. Empty nest syndrome. Again, that kind of letting go aspect of things were better before. Depression. Easy to cry, kind of goes with that weeping and poor me sort of sound to the voice. Again, somebody who sounds like they're going to kind of start maybe to cry at any minute. Honesty, hypersensitivity, isolation, somebody who fears being isolated or somebody who self-isolates as a way to feel more secure. Somebody who struggles with despair, which again is that kind of unexpressed or repressed grief. You know, grief is not a negative emotion. Grief repressed can become despair, and despair can be a negative emotion. Inability to cry. Have you ever known anybody who said to yourself, never seen them shed a tear? Just like that weepy sound, also the other end of the spectrum. Somebody living in the past or reminiscence, like I mentioned, like that kind of glory days. They talk about the best times of their lives are certainly not now. They were then. The spiritual resources available, letting in and letting go, very much connect to lung and large intestine. So when you're in healthy metal, you are really good at letting in people, information, situations, but you're also good at letting go. You're not holding on to things. You're not holding tightly to what was. You recognize that in order to receive, you have to open your hands. And your connection to spirits, especially in the animal realm, and spirit guides, they connect with metal. Your virtue, righteousness. That's my flaming sword of brightness. Any questions on metal? Okay. So moving on to water. The color and complexion, blue and black. Again, those, except for if you're the type of person that only just wants to wear black clothes. What am I wearing today? Kind of blue and black today. Except for that, if you're the person who will like dig through dirty laundry to get that blue shirt out or that black shirt, and that's not normally something you would do or some shirt that you would crave to wear, you might be working water right now. The climate is cold. This would be somebody who either loves cold or conversely hates cold. And you will know them because generally somebody who hates cold will tell you that all the time. They'll be like, I hate it. I hate it when it's cold. Hate to be cold. It's cold in here. Sound of voice and speech pattern, it's groany and gravelly. So something kind of like this. So I know if I sound like this during the day and I can kind of notice it about myself, I will think to myself, okay, so you got some water element, maybe out of balance. Maybe you should kind of look at that. All right, emotion, predominant and acute, anxiousness, but really more fear and trepidation. So the emotion to water is fear. Like wood is anger, fire is joy, earth is sympathy, metal is grief, water is fear. The life aspect or challenge and strength is willpower. People in water also have a lot of will. So they're the people that are doing stuff that nobody else can motivate themselves to do. Yes, Karma.
Sorry, I'm muted. So even if water is not like my element, but
your primary.
My primary element, but say like within the past few months, I've been experiencing like extreme amounts of anxiousness and fear, like on a daily basis. Would that mean that I have a water imbalance?
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know if this is like stepping on what we may talk about today, but will we be talking about how to kind of fix an imbalance if you have an imbalance in any elements?
Yes. In the next section, I'm going to give you some little things you guys can do at home that can help. Fix would likely need to work with somebody to receive a treatment, but awareness is kind of the first act, right? Awareness, acknowledgement, action, as my teacher Brave Eagle would say, is the AAA of healing, right? So first, awareness is the first thing. Then acknowledge, okay, I want this to change. And then you need to take an action. And, you know, in 2 hours, I can't give you enough action and I can't touch you, but you can contact me and I can give you some suggestions if you feel like this is really something that you need help with. Make sense?
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Willpower, that's where I was, right? Okay. Emotional, mental attributes, struggles, challenges, and skill sets. Extreme fear and fearing nothing. So, you know, those hats that say no fear? Anytime I see one of those, I think to myself, water imbalance. Anybody I see somebody doing extreme sports, water imbalance. Just like if I were to see somebody who is plagued with phobias and anxieties and, you know, afraid to leave the house, like severe agoraphobia, water imbalance. Fight or flight, those aspects of that response to stress, phobias. Safety issues, somebody who feels unsafe a lot. They don't feel safe in their community or maybe even in their home, or perhaps they have issues feeling safe around other people very commonly. Darkness issues, sign of water imbalance. It starts to get dark. People start to have more fears come up. Now, again, there can be personalized trauma that affects this, right? So you could have safety and darkness issues because of childhood trauma. Doesn't necessarily mean it's water. But here's a sign of a water imbalance. Just like that kind of willpower, also weakness of will, inability to feel like you have the strength of will, feeling narrow-minded, indecisive, faithful, insecure, determined, reliable. People working water are generally seen as reliable people. Respect for traditions. Somebody with a base element of water puts a lot of energy and faith and respect in their traditions, maybe their cultural traditions or their personal family traditions. You don't just start doing new stuff, right? There's traditions. Stubbornness, water people can be stubborn. Punctuality, excessive fear of change, because of course, fear of change would create something new and we're not sure if that would be good or bad. that could create a lack of flexibility. I don't know how to pronounce this word. It's just occurring to me. It's there. Pedantry. Susan?
Pedantry.
What does it mean?
That's a question for Sue.
Over concerned with details.
It's that's cute.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the word itself. So apparently that's not me. I'm not over concerned with details. I'm just going to shove it in real hard and get it done. Okay.
Well,
Good to know.
You also tend to want to repeat things and be exact about it.
Okay.
You know, it's got to be exactly the same.
Thank you, Joan. All right. Compulsivity, controlling, ability to try new things. So that's the opposite, kind of the fear of change. This is the person who wants to try all the new things. Yeah, let's do it. What is it? Let's do it. It's already done. Let's try it. Spiritual resources available. The ability to discern, which is a very important quality. Trust in God, self, the universe, faith. Basically, that kind of, whether or not it's clear for us, everything is going to work out as it's meant to be. And the virtue of a water person is in their wisdom. So, any questions on these emotional characteristics? You can find more. This isn't all of them, but you know, only so much time and so much actual room on a piece of paper. Like I started adding more and I'm like, there's no room here. I can't print this. Okay, so moving on to the overview. And I'm ending with this rather than starting with it is because I figured by now, when we talked about physical, mental, emotional, you probably got a vibe of where you're at. So it might help you kind of pay more attention and make more sense out of the section that I'm going to read. Okay, so let's start with wood. So the organs for wood are liver and gallbladder. Liver is the yin organ, gallbladder is the yang organ. And I'm not going to talk about yin and yang today because, again, another conversation. But I will, if you guys have interest, do it in a Facebook Live. Time of heightened meridian functions. So the liver is at its peak between 1 and 3 a.m. The gallbladder is its peak between 11 and 1 a.m. So why does this matter? People who either have a hard time falling asleep, they can't fall asleep till 1, or they can't fall asleep until 3, are generally people that are wood people. They are also people that will say to you, you know, this is the time my brain is the best. So I used to have a client who was an attorney, and they would say to me, you know, between 11 and 1 is when I get my best ideas. This is when the energy is heightened. So the good and the negative would be brought up. Also, if you're waking up, if you go to bed earlier, but you're waking up between 1 and 3, you could have a liver issue. If you're waking up between 11 and 1, it could be some gallbladder stuff. Nothing to rush to the doctor about, just awareness. Areas of the body affected based on the meridian lines. So on liver, it's going to mean that these are the areas of your body that you may suffer from discomfort, or may notice that you tend to be more injured in these areas. Liver, ribs, diaphragm, groin, and inner legs. Gallbladder, head, hips, shoulders, sides of the body, and temples. Again, this is where the meridian is running through the body. And a meridian is an energy pathway that moves through the body, connecting an organ to a distal part like a toe or finger. And this energy both is creates and nurtures, and is nurtured by the organ it's connected to. And if we're out of balance in one, then it'll oftentimes show. So for instance, if somebody comes to me and they say their hips are really hurting, or their sides of their legs are really sore, I immediately think gallbladder, and that immediately means wood. Season. So the season for wood is spring. It's the time of new growth and increasing vitality. So people who love spring are like, oh, favorite time of the year. Or conversely, someone who hated spring, but I don't know if anybody hates spring, that would be a sign of a connection to wood. The sensory organ is eyes and sight. So that means that if you have particularly great eyes and seeing, or you have issues with eyes and sight, could connect to wood. And this is going to sound a little strange because it's the only one that has this, but in Chinese medicine, they say the soul resides in the eyes during the day and in the liver at night. So what that means is we really want to release any feelings we have of anger, frustration, or irritation before we go to bed. You know, that adage, never go to bed angry, because that anger is going to go into the soul and into the liver and poison our liver. There's also a technique in Paldangam, which is a form of energy movement like Qigong, that is called punching with angry eyes. And I recommend that for anyone struggling with wood. And you just basically focus on something, not a partner or a person or anything alive. And they say you want to bring your anger up into your eyes and then kia with your fists until you feel you've released that anger. I recommend that to my clients if they're feeling frustrated and just can't shift out of it. Okay, body part affected. Wood imbalance tends to affect the ligaments and the tendons. So if you have a lot of ligament and tendonitis issues, tends to be a wood related. Body opening, the eyes. Fluid, the tears, issues with tears related to wood. So body odor. Now, what I recommend you do, because this is kind of fun, is, you know, don't shower, work out, and sniff yourself. And if you have a tendency to kind of have a smell that you would say is kind of rancid, that could let you know that maybe you're out of balance in wood. It's one of the first things I notice if I'm out of balance is my body odor smell changes. Does anyone ever notice that? You smell yourself and you're like, I don't really smell like me. And if no one but me has noticed that, then perhaps that's a me thing. But yes, thank you, Chris. Yeah, you might notice at first that you don't smell like yourself. Okay, the taste is sour. Now, this means that you are either attracted to the flavor of sour foods or you abhor them. But as a balance for wood, I recommend that if you eat a lot of sour, you stop. And if you eat no sour, you start. Does that make sense? Because it's kind of this all or nothing. So if you're like, oh my God, I love sour foods. Like give me sauerkraut and pickles and anything fermented. Oh, I could eat on those all day. You need to stop if you're showing signs of imbalance in wood and you're feeling, you know, excessively angry. If, however, you hate sour, start including that, because just like we should eat kind of all the colors of the rainbow, we should eat our foods with all the flavors of the elements. So there should be something sour at every meal for better health. The balancing grain is spelt. And what's interesting is, and I'm looking through of these and getting you these kind of grains, vegetables, fruits, meats, etc. There was no other grain. So that tells me that wood doesn't like grain. But if you wanted a grain that would be healthy to help balance your element of metal, it's spelt. Balancing vegetables, butternut squash, sweet potatoes, and young greens. You're feeling a little bit out of balance? Add this into your dinner. Balancing fruits, grapes, plums, tangerines, same thing. Increase these fruits in your life. Balancing meats, well, not surprisingly, the most balancing meat for wood is livers. So duck liver, cow liver, however you get your liver, and crustaceans. I don't eat meat or crustaceans, so this would not help me at all. The addictions for wood are work, alcohol, and drugs, which means just know it. If you recognize you're a wood person, know that these are going to be problems for you. And if you feel that you are really feeling out of balance, then watch the addictive behavior and see if you can shift some of this addictive behavior that is not helping you into something that would be more healing and holding for you. And as promised, I added your Chinese zodiac sign and the planets at the bottom here after I sent it out to you. So if you are interested in astrology, The wood people are born into the element if you're a tiger or a rabbit. So if you happen to know your Chinese zodiac sign, and the planet related to wood is Venus. All right, any questions about wood? Oh, and I'm running long. All right, I'm gonna try to speed it up. And if
Tevye
you
had
have
a quick question, Mom.
Yes,
Sorry.
before that, if you have to go at 2, and I apologize, we went longer. You never know how long, depending on how many people in the class. I will be posting this on my Facebook group page. So even if you have to go at 2 and we go to 2:15 or something, you'll still be able to see the end of it. Yes, Karma.
Tevye and Kristen both had a question in the chat. Tevye asked if you could talk about injured by excessive exercise.
Oh yes, did I skip that? I absolutely did. Forgive me. So yes, so every element has something that is injurious to the element. And for wood, because of its addiction and its addictive qualities, people who become addicted to exercise, like they have to work out all the time, have to have this kind of active motion of the body in a contracted state, that can be injurious to wood. So because it's both ends of the spectrum, if you're always working out, slow it down. If you don't work out at all, start working out. But find a balance in that and just know that you want to be watchful, that you to become somebody who becomes addicted to exercise. I apologize for skipping that. And thank you, Karma, for catching it. And thank you, Tevye, for catching it.
And Kristen had a question as well. She asked if we are born into the element that matches your Chinese zodiac.
Yes, that's why I've got it down here. So wood, tiger and rabbit, snake and horse, etc. Now, that may mean that you could be born in an element and show very few signs of it because of the nature of your childhood, your trauma, your lifestyle. You really act more out of another element. But just like there's certain issues with astrology, like I think like Capricorns have bad knees or bad teeth. You can kind of think of it like that. I might be wrong on that, but that just comes to mind. Any other questions? Okay. All right, going to fire. The yin organs are heart and pericardium. Heart, as we know, all about our emotional being, and pericardium is the heart protector. So we think about it as that which prevents the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. So it is the energy or the Chinese organ that is going to protect our heart from being broken. The yang organs, small intestine and triple warmer. Small intestine is that separator from pure to impure digestively. So it also helps with our thoughts, the ability to know right from wrong for self. And triple warmer is that thermoregulator. So when your body is able to maintain a good balance of heat versus cold, it's a healthy triple warmer. The organs run 11 to 1 for heart, 7 to 9 for pericardium, 1 to 3 for small intestine, 9 to 11 for triple warmer. So this means you could have symptoms of imbalance at these times more than any other. So for instance, like my fire is usually up between 11 and 1. That's when my chest is going to be the reddest. That's when I might feel like my blood pressure is a little spiky. And areas of the body affected based on meridian lines. So the heart and pericardium move through the chest, the armpits, the inner arms, and the middle of the body. The small intestine and triple warmer, outer arms, shoulders, or sorry, middle of the arms, inner and middle of the arms. Small intestine and triple warmer, outer arms, shoulders, temples, and around the ears. The season is summer. This is when there is the greatest warmth, light, greatest activity, and growth. If you're somebody who loves or hates summer, you might have an affinity to earth. The sense organ is the tongue and speech. So if you're having issues with your tongue or issues speaking, that could be a sign of a fire imbalance. The related issues, excessive talking, speechlessness, and stuttering. Oh, so they're stuttering. So issues with speech. When I talk too much, or if I'm teaching too much, like I'm teaching every single weekend, I notice I'll start to lose my voice and my fire energy will be excessive. The body part affected, heart, blood vessels. The body opening is the ears. The body fluid is the perspiration. So excessive sweating or lack of sweat. If you are unable to sweat, that is a sign of a fire imbalance. The body odor is a kind of scorched smell. So I often smell like flowers in the sun. And not in, I mean, that makes it sound sweet, but more of kind of like a burnt rose sort of smell, because it's a combination of my earth and my fire. But if you are working a lot of fire, you will smell scorched or burnt. Your sweat will. Balancing grains. We have more choice here. Oats, buckwheat, and flaxseed. If you're out of balance in fire, these are your go-tos. Vegetables, Brussels sprouts, celery root, and bitter greens. Balancing fruits, any stone fruits, and by that I mean fruits with pits inside, plums, apricots, peaches, and bilberries. I don't know what a bilberry is, but I had to put it in there because I had no idea what a bilberry was. But that's what traditional Chinese medicine says, is eat more bilberries. So if you can find those, eat them. Injured by excessive doing. So fire people want to get all the things done, all the do's want to do all the things. I want to do all the things all the time. I want to do them. My best day is a day where I did all the things. Like, yeah, gonna ratchet it down a little bit, turn down the fire a little bit, but yes, doing. So when you are excessively doing and overwhelmed in that energy space, that can be a sign that your fire is high, which you may want to balance. The addictions, relationships. Fire people have a tendency to either have numerous relationships or stay in relationships, maybe even too long. They also can become addicted to pleasure and things that bring them pleasure. And the addiction to fire is also smoking, which is kind of almost like a pun, but true. So if you are noticing that you are feeling excessive in fire, having heart stuff, feeling hot all the time, and you're a smoker, cut back. The Chinese zodiac sign, snake and horse, and the planet is Jupiter. Any questions about fire? Hopefully I didn't skip one of them. Sweet. Earth, talking about sweet. The organs are spleen and stomach. Spleen runs 9 to 11, stomach runs 7 to 9. They say the best time to eat breakfast is when stomach is running. So if you can eat breakfast between 7 and 9, your body actually likes that the best. Areas of the body affected: inner legs, ribs, big toe, and groin. You remember the fourth toe and the pinky? Spleen is connected to the big toe. So if you have big toe issues, you might want to look at spleen, and they might hurt you more between 9 and 11. Stomach, face, chest, and outer legs. The season for Earth is Indian summer. So we want to think about the times between like August and October. This is the time of harvest. Food is plentiful. It's relaxing. It's warm. Also, in some different areas of the world, it's wetter. It's more damp. And as we remember, humidness and dampness is related to Earth as a climate. The sense organ is mouth and taste. So if you're having issues with mouth or with the ability to taste food, that would be Earth related. Your lips, if somebody is got cracked, dry lips, that shows that perhaps they are having spleen issues to me. Body part, it affects your muscles and your flesh. And flesh in traditional Chinese medicine is thought of as the space between the skin and the muscles. So it's kind of just like your flesh, if you feel like you're fleshy, right? The body opening is your mouth. The fluid is saliva. So if you're having dry mouth issues or excessive salivation, Earth. The body odor is fragrant and flowery. And I have to tell you a very quick story. So I was at a party once, and a friend of mine, who some of you actually know, was sitting on a chair and was surrounded by people, and everyone was laughing. And so, of course, I walked up and I asked, what is it? What's so funny? And my friend, who's a gentleman, had his shoes off, and he was telling everybody, smell my feet. They smell like flowers. And everybody's laughing. They're like, oh my God, they do. They smell like flowers. Why do your feet smell like flowers? And immediately I was like, oh, that's not good. Someone's feet should not smell like flowers. True story, within a week, he was hospitalized with a spleen problem. So it can be that kind of almost overwhelming smell of flowery or fragrant. Yes, Rita.
I have a question. A friend got COVID, and his sense of smell and taste has been affected. And so that looks like earth and metal.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry about the window here. What could you suggest, or what would you suggest, like his AAA to help the smell and taste?
So I would need to know a little bit more. So what I recommend on that one, because that's kind of a multi-layered complex thing, like I would need to know what is his lungs doing. So why don't you take me up on a discovery session?
Okay.
And it's complimentary, and you can tell me about it, and I can maybe help you with the diagnosis and some suggestions.
Okay.
Because that's a great question.
Okay. I'll see you Tuesday.
Oh, did you already do it?
Yes.
Oh, lovely.
Yay.
Okay. All right. So taste, also sweet. So people who work earth are attracted to sweets. It's also people who oftentimes hate sweets. So it's usually one or the other. But it is, if you go down to addiction real quick, you can see sugar addiction is an earth imbalance. Balancing grains, spelt, millet, quinoa, and barley. Balancing vegetables, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, potatoes, sweet potatoes. Dates, figs, grapes, and Mirabelle plums. I'm not sure what a Mirabelle plum is, but I threw it in there anyways. My guess is it's probably orange or yellow in color, because oftentimes eating foods that is the color of your element, even if they're not listed here, can be super healing. Balancing meats, beef, and eggs. And if you're a vegetarian like me, just skip that. Injured by excessive sitting. So people with an earth imbalance, unlike people with a wood imbalance, with an earth imbalance, you really need to move every day, even if it's a 15-minute walk after dinner. But sitting will make your element the most impacted by its negative qualities. So if you want to balance some of the symptoms that you've heard me talk about, or some of the emotional or mental components, you've got to sit less. Addictions, food and sugar. So obesity falls under earth. The Chinese zodiac sign, ox, dragon, goat, and dog. I'm a goat, or a sheep in some different zodiacs. And the planet is Mercury. So I always like to say that the song that reminds me of earth, just like Glory Days reminds me of metal, the song that reminds me of earth is Summertime, which is amusing because it's what my mother sang to me when I was a child and what I sang to my daughter when she was a child. So we're just spreading the earth, just continuing it on. Okay, any questions on earth, or shall we move to metal? All right. The yin organ is lung, the yang organ is the large intestine. So again, letting in, letting go. Lung 3 to 5. If you're waking up between 3 to 5 a.m. coughing, that's the most common time people will wake up coughing. And the reason why is because that's when lung is heightened. 5 to 7 a.m. for metal. So that's a good time to get up and take a poop. The areas of the body affected: chest, inner arms, and thumbs. So issues with your thumbs could be related to lung. And then outer arms, teeth, and sinuses. The season is fall. So these would be people that either love fall or hate fall. In fall, trees lose leaves as energy and things withdraw internally. So that's also a very balancing thing for people who work with metal, is to know when to withdraw from activity, when you need to rest, recover, renew, restore, all those great R words. Related issues, rhinitis or difficulty with sense of smell. Body part affected, skin, body hair, armpits, and hands. So skin issues are metal. Body opening, your nose. The fluid is mucus. The odor is rotten. I like to think of it as kind of rotten eggs. And with rancid, I don't know if I said this, but it kind of reminds me of like rancid bacon. The taste is pungent and spicy. So if you are somebody who craves the pungent, this would be things like horseradish, ginger, garlic, or that kind of spicy flavor, but not the hot spicy. Hot spicy is more fire, right? If you want something that's really high in capsaicin and burns your tongue, that's a fire craving. But metal would be more something that clears the sinuses. Like somebody who says to you, oh, I love wasabi, it clears my sinuses. That's kind of a metal thing. Yeah. Okay, balancing vegetable, balancing grain, long grain rice. Oh, and before I skip that, let's say pungent and spicy. If you're not eating anything pungent or spicy, start. If you put pungent and spicy foods in every meal, stop doing that. And those are ways to balance that element. The grain is long grain rice, and it is the only grain for metal. So apparently metal doesn't really like grains either. The balancing vegetables, celery root, radish, onions, horseradish, ginger, and garlic. And if you notice, these are all things that have a white center. So again, eating kind of the color of the element. The fruits, peaches and chestnut. The meats are venison and goose. I will have you know that originally, when I first started studying this like 15 years ago, the balancing meat for metal was horse. And I would talk to my teachers and say, no one's eating horse in America. Like there's got to be a different balancing meat. And so after further research, I was able to find them, and it's venison and goose. Injured by excessive reclining. So it also can be helped by reclining. So when you think of a lung that's out of balance and you're coughing a lot, sometimes sitting up or laying flat will create more coughing, but a reclined position can be better for the lung. But conversely, it can be worse for the large intestine. So if you are reclining all the time, based on maybe you've got a good recliner at home and you're always in it, take breaks from reclining and make sure you're sitting upright or laying flat. So injured by excessive reclining. Addictions. So a metal addiction looks like hoarding. Objects. Can't get rid of stuff. Got it everywhere, because a lot of times they hold memories, right? So our inability to get rid of something is we're holding on to the past, those glory days that I talked about. So you know that there's a metal component or element in your life if you just can't seem to let go of anything. And it's especially important to release because letting in and letting go are the organs. All right, and the Chinese zodiac signs are monkey and rooster, and the planet is Mars. All right, any questions on metal? Okay, go to water. Yin is kidney, yang is bladder. So yes, any kidney or bladder issues you have, it's definitely water. Yes, Karma.
Sorry, I had a quick question. So say you hate spicy food normally, never like to eat spicy food, but all of a sudden you are craving spice, like you want something spicy to eat and it tastes good to eat it. Does that mean that you're having a metal imbalance and that's your body trying to like fix it?
What kind of spice? Is it hot or is it pungent?
Well, it sometimes varies. Like sometimes I like crave garlic. Like I'll put garlic in, like recently I've been like putting garlic in like everything. Like I made like a garlic, like just sauce, straight up garlic.
Yes, it is your body naturally leading you towards the foods that will help balance an imbalance. So if
Okay.
you're feeling especially sad and grief stricken and you're craving garlic, yeah, it's your body trying to help you balance.
Cool.
I know. So fascinating. Okay. 5 to 7, 3 to 5. So like I mentioned before on the other page, if you find yourself exhausted between the hours of 5 to 7, that could be a sign of a water element imbalance or a kidney imbalance. And for a lot of people, they work and they get off at 5. And so they think to themselves, well, yeah, I get off at 5. Of course, I'm tired. But let's say you don't work out of the home. You don't get off at 5, but still 5 to 7, you're exhausted. That could be a sign that you have a water imbalance. 3 to 5, again, also the same thing with your bladder. Areas of the body, ankles, side of the feet, inner legs and chest, neck, back, buttocks, and back of legs. And that's primarily because the bladder meridians runs in a parallel down the back of your head and down your spine, then splits and then goes into the back of your legs. Yes, Karma. Nope.
Joan mentioned in the chat,
Yeah.
they said you mentioned your Chinese zodiac might be different depending on different charts. Is there a standard or better one to use?
There is not that I know of. I just know that sometimes I'm shown to be a goat, and sometimes I think I'm a lamb. So I know there are some variances, but honestly, rather than even worrying about my Chinese zodiac, I think that I would just diagnose myself through the information that you've got here. Because even if you're born into a specific element, you will know that that's an element that you're working based on the symptomology that you have, or your preferences, or your hated things. Okay. So the season is winter. People who love winter, people who hate winter, they usually tell you because it's cold, and people are like that with cold. They'll be like, oh, I hate winter. Hate it. It's dark and cold, and the activity occurs deep in the roots. So balancing for winter, for water, is really allowing yourself to go in. And again, more of those R words: restore, recover, renew, replenish, rest is really good for water, especially when it's out of balance, especially in winter. Rest is really good for everyone in winter. The sense organ is ears and hearing. So most sensitive to changes in the body's water level. The body part affected is the teeth, the bones, the bone marrow, and the hair on the head versus the body hair. So also I've heard it say the brain, because the brain is the marrow of the skull. The body openings affected, so issues with genitals, urethra, and anus. The body fluid affected, if your urine starts smelling really funny and it's not because of dehydration. The body odor is putrid, and I describe putrid as a kind of a wound, like a wound that's gone bad. Like if you've ever smelled maybe an animal that had a wound or something, that's kind of the putrid smell. The taste is salty, so it's either a craving or a pouring. Like, have to put salt on everything, you're working water. Like, slow it down. Or don't like salt at all, and it's not because of a blood pressure issue, add a little salt. Add a little salt. The grain, millet, quinoa, wild rice. The vegetable, if you notice, also colors: eggplants, black truffle, beans, sea vegetables. Fruits, grapes and plums. Meats, fish and shellfish, not surprising for water. The injured by excessive standing. So the reason that is because the bladder meridians run down the back of the head, the back, the glutes, and the legs. People who have careers where they stand all day, like security guards and things like that, often struggle with being out of balance and water because the meridians are injured by having to stand all day. Addictions, water addictions are sex addicts is a water, and adrenaline junkie is also water. And the Chinese zodiac signs, pigs and rats, and the planet is Saturn. Any question on water? Okay. So
I have a question.
yes.
Everywhere I've read, the monkey is very tied to water, but on this chart you have it under metal.
So I didn't do a ton of research on these bottom two. I just included them for my friends who were into astrology, who I knew would be on this. But I did get this out of a site that is Chinese and related to specifically traditional Chinese medicine. So I would say if you were told, let's say, for instance, that you're a monkey, I would check and see which one of these are most, between water and metal, which feel more like you, if you feel a connection to one or another. But yeah, I haven't done a ton of research on the Chinese zodiac sign. So if zodiac interests you or astrology interests you, then please let me know what you find if it's different and like where you find it. And great question. Any other questions? Okay, so when I talked about things that I can tell you you can do for yourself as an overview, the times of the day that are highlighted here are times that you should not be excessively using these organs. So don't go on a big drinking binge between 1 and 3 in the morning. Don't work out if you're fire between 11 and 1. Don't eat a lot of sugar between 9 and 11. Don't compromise your breath. You know, they say that between 3 and 5 in the morning is the best time to do Qigong. It's the best time to go outside and breathe in healthy air. And between 5 and 7, if you are somebody who struggles with water and maybe you get off work at 5 and go straight to the gym, I wouldn't, because you're risking adrenals. I would work out for you in the morning when kidney wasn't running, because between 5 and 7 is when your kidneys are going to be heightened and therefore taxed. You don't want to stress them out. Areas of the body, just be conscious and cautious to any particular area of your body that is related to where you know your element is most affected. Season, expect that if you are a particular element, that you will notice that your symptoms will probably be more heightened, you could say worse, in this particular season. So if you're wood, you might be more frustrated in spring. If you're fire, you might be either more joyous or lack of joy in summer, more compassionate or feeling lack of compassion in Indian summer or late summer, more sad in fall, more scared in winter. Related issues, again, these parts of the body are going to kind of turn you towards a particular element. Be gentle with these things. Notice the smells of these things, your tears, perspiration, saliva, mucus, and urine. If it starts to change radically, you can know that perhaps you're out of balance. Same with your body odor. And then the balancing aspects like taste, if you have none of these in your life, add them. In traditional Chinese medicine, every meal should have a color from the 5 elements and a flavor from the 5 elements. So if you tend to have meals that are just really sweet, make sure you put something in there that has a bitter flavor, because that bitter is going to help your heart. Or make sure you put something in there that is sour, because that sour flavor is going to help your liver and gallbladder. That pungent flavor is going to help your lung and large intestine. Balancing grains, eat more of these things. Vegetables, same. Fruit, same. Also, if you tend to be someone who eats more of one type of meat than another meat and you're feeling out of balance, eat the elemental meat. And then injured by exercise, doing, sitting, reclining, standing, if you know you are excessive in these areas, switch it up. It'll make you feel better. And I end with something I just think is kind of cool for you to read on your own. And that is the last page has meditations. So these are things that you can read to yourself, you can record and then have read to you while you're in a meditative state with your eyes closed, or you can just kind of meditate on what the words mean. And they're meant to help balance the system. So that's it, guys and gals and folks. And I
Thank you
apologize
so
for
much.
running late. Yes.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Thank
You have
you,
a-
Kat.
Thank you. You have a link. You can contact me if you have personal questions that you don't want to share here. You are very welcome, Seema. Thank you for joining. And I was so honored that all of you chose to be here. When I first posted this on my Facebook group, I really thought to myself, no one would find this interesting. But I find it fascinating because, again, it's not just divination, it's diagnosis.
Yeah.
And there are things that you can do, not just with someone else as your practitioner, not just by going to somebody else, but things you can personally do to help switch this energy so it's more balanced. Like if you're feeling really worrisome and you're stressing and you're over caretaking, codependent, watch your sweets. Like just simple things like that. And so that's one of the reasons I love it. And I love all of you. And thank you for joining. Join my Facebook group if you haven't already. I will post this video there. You're welcome to share. If somebody, you can invite anybody to it. They will not get a copy of the chart though. That's just for you guys that showed up today.
Thank you.
Thank
You are
Cass.
so welcome. I love you all. And
Love, love, love.
Love you.
Love you, Cass.
I love you.
Nice to see everyone. Bye.
Thank
This is
you.
the next something.
Yay. So contact me if you need anything. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.